Hello, my name is Justin Haskins, and this is 15 Minutes of Freedom. Thanks so much for joining me. Of course, as always, brought to you by StoppingSocialism.com. StoppingSocialism.com. Today's topic is Joe Biden. Joe Biden has a big problem. Of course, everybody knows Joe Biden, former Vice President of the United States. He is the presumptive nominee for the Democratic Party. We'll see how that all shapes up. That's a topic for a whole different video. But Joe Biden has a big problem, and the big problem is this. There are a lot of folks in the Democratic Party who don't love Joe Biden, and that's a problem because in order for Joe Biden to win, he needs to do better than Hillary Clinton did in 2016. He needs to do much closer to what Barack Obama did in 2012, maybe not quite as good as Barack Obama. And I think that when Joe Biden was chosen to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, and again, it's not official yet, but he has essentially been chosen, it was based entirely on the fact that Joe Biden is considered to be more electable. He's a more electable candidate. But I don't know that the Democratic Party really stopped and took the time necessary to figure out whether Joe Biden actually is as electable as everybody says that he is. And there's this great new poll that just came out from Harvard Kennedy School. It's the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. They produced this poll of young people. And young people, of course, are a very devoted demographic for the Democratic Party. The Democratic Party relies heavily on young people to come out and vote, to support the Democratic Party. Young people never come out and vote in large numbers. That's just not something that historically has happened. They were more motivated than usual with Barack Obama, but historically, they don't come out to vote in large numbers, but their vote matters a lot. Because the Democratic Party depends on the voters that do come out to vote for the Democratic candidate and not to vote for the Republican or for the independent. Well, this very recent survey that just came out from Harvard, the Harvard Kennedy School, it asked a whole bunch of questions, and I'm actually planning on doing a lot of videos and a lot of podcasts talking about this survey because there is some really interesting stuff in the survey. But one of the most interesting questions is a really simple question. It's, who would you rather vote for? I'm going to read you I don't want anyone to accuse me of making things up, so I'm going to read you exactly the question, the question exactly as it was presented to those who had been surveyed. And again, this was a survey of 18 to 29-year-olds. They were asked if the election for president were held today, and the candidates were Joe Biden, the Democrat, Donald Trump, the Republican, and an independent or third-party candidate, for whom would you vote? Kudos to them for using proper grammar. The possible answers, of course, were Joe Biden, Donald Trump, independent candidate, don't know, refused, and here were the results. Of all the people who had been surveyed, 39% chose Joe Biden, 39%. 25% chose Donald Trump, and a whopping 16%, chose an independent candidate. That is really stunning. 16% chose the independent candidate. Now, why does that matter? It matters a lot because the independent candidate historically does not get a whole lot of support from young people. They usually vote overwhelmingly for Democrats or they stay home. That's historically what's happened. Now, if we go back and we look at previous elections and we see how these things have all shaped up, what we see is that in 2012, the last time a Democrat actually won a presidential election, again, it was Barack Obama, 18 to 29-year-olds, 60% of them voted for Barack Obama, 37% voted for the Republican, which of course it was Mitt Romney in 2012, and only 3% chose some other candidate, an independent candidate, whether that's the Libertarian or Green Party candidate or just a write-in or something like that. All right, so only 3%. In 2016, which remember was an election Democrats lost, 8% voted for an independent candidate. 8%. This is 16%. 16% according to this survey. Even if it drops a little bit and it goes down to about 12% or something like that, it's still a significant increase in the percentage of young people who don't want to vote for the Democrat. And if that happens, if that were to actually happen in November, what you would see is tremendous problems for Joe Biden in many swing states, especially, I believe. It would be very difficult for him to be able to capture the election if he can't manage to maintain at least what Hillary Clinton did with young people in 2016 and be nowhere near. I mean, we're talking about doing just not even a quarter of what Barack Obama was able to achieve in 2012 in terms of independent vote, making sure that young people are not voting for the independent candidate. If Joe Biden can't do that, then Joe Biden is going to have a difficult, not necessarily impossible, but a difficult time winning the election. So this is an incredibly important statistic and something that we all should be looking out for going forward. So the question I think that really needs to be asked is, why do young people have such a lack of enthusiasm for Joe Biden? I mean, it would be easy to look at the age and say, well, Joe Biden is, an older candidate. He's a very old candidate, relatively speaking. But of course, young people loved Bernie Sanders in the Democratic Party. They absolutely loved Bernie. And Bernie is also a very old candidate. Again, relatively speaking, he's an older candidate. And in fact, when they conducted this survey, they asked people what they thought of Bernie Sanders, and support for Bernie Sanders was actually much higher than for Joe Biden. Joe Biden, remember, 39% of those who were surveyed said that they would choose Joe Biden if it was between Joe Biden, Donald Trump, and an independent candidate. When they asked the same question, but they swapped out Joe Biden for Bernie Sanders, they had Bernie Sanders in that spot, it was 48%. So it went from 39% support to 48% support. Donald Trump's support stayed the same, but the independent candidate, the support for independents, that's what shifted to Bernie Sanders. Only 10% said that they would vote for an independent if they could choose between Bernie Sanders, Donald Trump, and an independent. It was 16% when it was Joe Biden instead of Bernie Sanders. So there's a pretty sizable group of young people, 18 to 29-year-olds, who say, I'm willing to vote for Bernie Sanders. I'm not willing to vote for Joe Biden. So Joe Biden has a huge problem. Now, I'm going to do a whole series of videos probably and podcasts talking about why it is that young people don't like Joe Biden. We don't necessarily have time to go into that right now, but it is important because nobody seems to be covering this. I wrote a column about this for FoxNews.com on May 3rd, which is Sunday, talking about this very thing, but most mainstream media outlets are not covering this. But this is such an important issue. It's such an important topic and something everyone should be looking out for as the election season gets closer and closer and closer to November. Is Joe Biden going to be able to get young people to support him in the way that Barack Obama did, or even in the way that Hillary Clinton did? If not, things are going to look really good for those of you who support Donald Trump. So thanks for tuning in. That's all we have for today. Again, this was 15 minutes of freedom, and as promised, I managed to get under 15 minutes. We're at about 9 minutes right now. So under 15 minutes, as promised, 15 minutes of freedom. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to the Stopping Socialism channel on YouTube. Please follow Stopping Socialism, the Facebook page, and my personal page, Justin Haskins. You can find it on Facebook. You can find it on Twitter. I'm verified. Just look for the blue check mark, Justin T. Haskins. And please follow me, follow our channels, and share our content. We are standing against socialism. We're talking about issues that are in the news from a pro-liberty free market perspective. And we're looking forward to building a long-lasting relationship with you at StoppingSocialism.com. So please, if you're interested in sharing your opinions, comments, please do so through a variety of the social media channels that I mentioned before, or you can email me at jhaskins@ heartland.org or jhaskins@henrydearborn.org. Thank you so much for your time, and until next time, stay free.